other and do whatever, but there's been no aggressive. They're all perfect. They're fat, they're healthy. And so I think a lot of those smaller Odatria type monitors, they probably live in group situations in the wild anyway. There's only so many rocky crevices and stuff like that. So
yeah, I mean, from what I understand, males in the wild pretty much dominate a certain piece of property, I guess, and then they have so many females within that area that they just like smash on, I guess. And like it's kind of like that in every area, right, where it's like one male to like how many females, and like they're pretty much king of the hill with any other fucking monitors that try to come in that area. Or like, I mean, in the wild they have multiple females, basically, is what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, I think for the larger species, that's probably certainly the case. I end up preferring. I've just found over the years that having everything like in pairs pretty much really hedges your bets against against having things fail. So,
right. Okay.
It's a little bit less. It's a little less maybe optimal, but at the end of the day, when I look at my outcomes when I went from having, one male and lots of females to having pairs, I actually produced more with less females, and it pretty much has, borne itself out as true over time. Wow. So I started switching to that model about 10 years ago, and it really, it's been working. I mean, we produce a lot of rare species, some of which, people have had a hard time doing previously, and then I got them and set them up like this, and we've been cranking them out. There's a few rare anoles that we're working on that were pretty tough. So, and when I got them, this is Anolis luteolare, so it's like a 2-foot anole from Cuba. And there were some in captivity in the United States, but not many. And the people that had them all reported that at least that I heard, they were all having like real problems. They couldn't get them to produce.
Right.
And then I took some on breeding loan, put them outside, and split them into pairs, and gave them the setup that I thought was appropriate. And I produced like 40 of them already. So so we'll have them fully established, I think. Well, not fully established, but we'll have an assurance colony of them by the end of this year. And then I'm trying to get them into hands of people that will continue that, because you really need, you need about 20 people with a fair number, somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe 20 to 50 animals per person, to really have a colony that has a chance of surviving in multi-generations in captivity. Other than that, I've seen a lot of things are dangerously close to being gone forever from the trade. I can think of 10 things right now off the top of my head that are like teetering right there. There's like 1 or 2 guys with a couple of them. Australian water dragons are a good example of that. There's not many left. There was one guy that was making thousands of them named Bert Langerwerf, and he passed away in mid-2000s. And when he did, the rest of us didn't really carry it on. I mean, I bought some of his collection, and I got bored with them and traded them off for other stuff that I wanted to work with. And now when I go and look for them, they're almost non-existent. So I know a few people that are working on them and trying to resurrect them. But they're right there. They're, I mean, 1 or 2, fuck ups and they're gone.
I mean, so. Ron, if you don't mind, just because like I was telling you earlier, this channel is like influenced by like a lot of new people in the hobby and whatnot. So can you kind of tell people who out there who are curious, like what your involvement's been and for how long with this industry and whatnot?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in Miami. We had all kinds of lizards and snakes right in our backyard, right in the city. I mean, I grew up in the city. So, when I was a little kid, I used to go out there and catch the stuff, and always had an interest in that and dinosaurs and shit like that. By the time I was about 15 or so, I started, I basically found my way to a reptile importer wholesaler. And then I found out that, hey, I can catch local lizards and trade them to this guy for shit that I want. True red tail boas and red tegus and all that stuff. So I started doing that. And by the time I was 16, I was rocking it, and I was making money, and it seemed pointless to even continue to do anything else but this. So I dropped out of school and started doing this. And then it just snowballed from there. Eventually, I was a commercial collector for a while. I collected basically non-native species that were loose all over South Florida, iguanas and various anole species. And by the time I was 20, I was supplying a fairly large number of the trade with those animals. I was one of the primary suppliers down south. So, and I just kept trading. And right around that time, the ball python thing started to take off, and the boas and all the morphs. So I realized that I had access to, I was selling to 5 big importers in Miami that brought in all the ball pythons and all the boas for everybody else. And I could go through those shipments because I was there and selling them anoles, and I picked out all kinds of morphs. Some of the first ball python morphs that entered the trade came through me in one way or another.
Yeah, that's so.
I had the second caramel albino. I forget what they called that thing. Lindy and Kevin McCurley from Nerd ended up buying it, but and I had a lot of them that they used to call ghost balls, which were really hypos. I don't know what you guys call them now because I've been out of the ball python thing, but I didn't really. Yeah, and so I was always a boa guy, so I was really there for boas and tegus and monitors and shit like that. So the ball pythons I would pretty much sell. I would go through the shipments, find weird stuff, and then I had guys that were paying me $2,000 a pop for every weird ball python that I could pull out, and I was paying $10 for these things. I'd buy 100 lot of ball pythons, and I would get, sometimes 8 or 10 potential morphs in a single shipment. And I mean, at the time, I pulled out things that went on to make serious ball python guys a lot of money over time. So, but for me, it really wasn't my deal. And like I said, my interest is more stuff like that. I mean, I like it all, and I've kept it all, and I even bought one of those fucking banana balls when they were $10,000 and lost my ass 6 months later. But I have very broad interests. So at this point in my career, I've bred everything from multiple tree frog species and shit tons of snake species and lots and more lizards than I can even remember. Because at the end of the day, I'm probably mostly a lizard guy. I like it all. So
let's check out some of these anoles real quick because these are pretty badass. Like, this anole is one of the ones that get up to 2 feet, or is this not one of them?
Yeah, no, that's one of them. That's the one I was talking about. That was almost. I mean, there's very few of them, and that's Anolis luteolaris, and that's the western giant anole, and they lay 1 egg every 7 to 10 days, and they'll do that. Yeah, and that's all these. I'm sorry.
What do you incubate them at?
Room temperature, 78 degrees.
78. Wow.
Yeah. Okay. And super easy. They eat the crested gecko diets and insects and fresh fruit. I think if you could pull up a Podior picture, the Podior are probably the big project. That's the real colorful. Yeah. Okay. Those. So, and that's not even a good one. We have some that just blow that away. But that is the interest that I have from those is probably the most I've ever seen in my entire career. And I was the originator of the blood boa and the motley boa and some of the other stuff. And they didn't have any sort of.
You just said you're the originator, and you're not even trying to flex. That's just so sick. Like, you're just being honest. Like, that is. I'm sorry, that is so hard, bro, because those are so crucial things in the hobby now, what you just said, the blood and the motley. Like, it's like, whew. Anyway, sorry, I just had to say that.
Yeah, I mean, those and the blue and albino blue tegus are my 4 probably primary things that I introduced to the trade. And all 4 of those, I mean, the albinos were a surprise, but for the blue tegus, that's another Podior. Most of them have the yellow flecking, but that one is a solid blue one, which is an anomaly. But we have a group of those producing now too. So, those things I hate posting pictures of those, dude, because my fucking phone explodes every time I do. So it's a cool problem to have, but holy shit, when I get those out, I'm
how do people
ill
do?
prepared.
How do people do when you actually give? I mean, what are like the survival rates normally when you give these to people who are just like, oh, can I please have one? You know, like, do you have to be careful, or like, is this pretty an easy species to get established if you just listen to what your advice
Yeah,
is?
I mean, they're really easy to establish, but the price is very high, like Podiora, 2,500 a pop. So anybody that pays that is going to, do their research.
No, you'd be surprised.
All right. Well, most people.
Yeah, most.
But yeah, I mean, they're actually basically fairly standard. I mean, if you look at, so if you take the Leachianus geckos, which are pretty common in the trade now, and most people have some, there's lots of books on them, and it's a simple thing to find good info on those. But you can take that animal and port a lot